Hello. Can both of you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Just got to make sure that we're all on the same page here. And where are you coming from today?
I'm in Klamath Falls.
Oh, fun.
And I'm in Days Creek,
And Danes Creek is where?
outside of Canyonville.
Ah, okay. Just a little south of Eugene. I'm coming from Eugene, and my granddaughter goes to school at OIT down there in Klamath Falls. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, she's a senior this year, and her fiance is getting his master's. So,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah. Yeah, it's she seems to really like it. Both of them do. And oddly enough, she likes the weather, which surprises me.
Yeah, me too. Oh,
Yeah, it's a wee bit cold down there in the winter time.
yeah, it was 30 this morning.
Oh, yikes. Well, we haven't got that cold yet, but it's coming.
Yes, ma'am, it's coming.
Well, I see we have a few other people who have joined us. Welcome. We've got about 3 minutes to go. If you like, whoever joined us here just recently, you can go ahead and tell us where you're calling in from.
I'm Sherry. I'm calling in from Eugene Springfield office.
Oh, are you right here in the office
Not
today?
now. I'm at home
Oh,
now.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in the conference room at the office. So I was going to say
Oh,
you could come in here and be right up close and personal.
oh, okay. Shoot, I missed that opportunity.
Yeah, well, a lot of people could do these Zoom sessions from home. When I'm doing one of these presentations, I like to come in here to the office in case I mess something up, then somebody's here to help me.
Right.
Anyway,
I'm Rahma. I'm calling from Sunset Car, but I'm in my house right now.
so where did you say you're calling from?
Sunset Car, coded.
Oh, Sunset Corridor. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, awesome, awesome. Mara should be jumping on here any minute now, just to do the introduction and pass off. And if she doesn't, then I'll just proceed like I know what I'm doing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I know she lost her phone service this morning, so wonder
Oh,
if that
she
has
did?
anything. Yeah, she said her phone died, so she's got
Oh,
a
Lord.
temporary phone. So I don't know
Oh,
if that
God.
has anything to do with this.
That's funny. If she was calling in on a burner phone, that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's straight up 1 o'clock. I don't see that she's jumping on. So I am going to go. I firmly believe in starting our meetings on time. So let me introduce myself. I'm Linda Reed. I'm entering my 9th year in the business, and I work out of the Eugene Springfield office. I'm a solo agent, and this is my second time in teaching this particular presentation. Most of the time, I teach the one that's strictly for buyers. But that being said, I'm going to do a screen share here so that you can all. Okay, so that's not, there we go. Okay, so are you seeing the one that just says dispel the myth understandings, or do you see the text at the side as well?
We see everything.
We see the text on the side.
It's
Okay.
all there.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second with this so I can do attendance real quick. Who's on just as iPhone? I can mark you as here. Is that Jamie or? Hang on. Well, you might just not get credit for being here. And then even tell me you were here. All right, take it away, Linda.
Sorry, dear. I just did my own self-introduction, so
I
there you
saw
go.
that. You're good. I saw that. I hopped on right before you started it. But
Oh, you were.
yeah, if you find out who's on here is just iPhone, you can let me know and I'll mark them for their attendance. But otherwise, they're good. Oh, I almost saw a face.
I'm here, Rama.
Oh, it's Rama. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Rama. All right, have fun. Bye.
Okay, thanks, Mara. All right, I just shortened this up so that you get just more of a bigger screen here. So anyway, today we're going to do um, qualifying our potential buyers and sellers. And the first part, they want us to have a discussion about what our misunderstandings are about finding these buyers and sellers. And does anybody want to just jump in and give me an idea what you think?
Well, I know one thing, that finding the buyers and sellers, you got to shake a lot of trees and kick a lot of bushes from what I've seen.
I love it. That's awesome.
Well, it's interesting as we go along in this business of how things change and also how they remain the same. And as I was waiting for us to get started in this program today, I thought, I wonder what it is that I could say to them that would be the single most important thing that I could help them. And aside from viewing these screens and everything, but how could I help you in not making the same mistakes that I did? Thank you, dear. Um, and the one thing that I would say is that in the beginning, I had a coach and I was it was through an Ignite class, and I had not put together all of the people that I knew to do any kind of contact list, whether it was an email list, a mailing list, or anything like that. And he said to me, just go out and make a mess and you can clean it up later. And so for the very next meeting that we had, I had created about 200 people on a mailing list. And I was able then, there's a lady here in town, Trinda Levette, that has a marketing company. And so she used to be in our office here in Eugene, Springfield. And she does business cards and our signs if you want to have customized signs. And she did headshots and all that sort of thing. She worked after COVID. She is still in business, but she works from home. So she did the first announcement postcard that I had. I had been a wholesale lumber trader for 30 years. And so I wanted the people that were here locally to know that I had switched jobs and that I had switched jobs and that I was in real estate. So the number one thing is try to work into your conversations always that you're selling real estate. And so if I'm relating something to someone, I'll say, well, in my real estate business, I encounter blah, blah, blah. But I make it so that it doesn't feel like I'm trying to sell them right then. It's just you're dropping that you're in real estate. And then I just go on and talk about whatever it is that the conversation was. But back to this mailing, I did this the first mailing, and that was like in July to announce that I was starting. And so then for the second month, she had this and still does, and I still buy them. She would create Oregon and OSU football refrigerator magnets. And you're probably thinking, why is she telling me this story? Well, it's how I started my business. So I mail out these magnets to that list of 200 that I had. And then every month after that, I would do one of her postcard mailings, and she had freebies. So it was like you might be giving away she'd make a deal with a car wash company. And so you'd give away a free car wash. And then when the people would redeem them, you could call them back and just start having a conversation with them. And if they knew me personally, they'd ask me about how I was liking the business as I was getting started. But by December, I get a phone call, and this gentleman calls, and I did not know him personally. In 40 years, I had met him once, but I'd known his wife for 40 years, and she had recently died of cancer. And he says, I want to sell the house. Can you come over and tell me what I need to do to get it ready? So I did that, and I signed the contract with him that night. He was my first piece of business. I held the open house in February. It snowed the day before, and I thought, oh, nobody's going to show up. And everybody showed up. I was extremely busy. And one of the ladies that came through, and this was my first open house. I didn't shadow anybody. I just was winging it, but I had taken Ignite, and so I knew to have my buyer sign-in sheets that had contact info and everything. I met a lady that came to that open house. She wanted to, with her sister, they were going to purchase a house for her parents who lived in Nevada. So we started looking immediately for her. And that transaction, I did a purchase we bought the house for her parents. Then her sister in Washington moved down so she could be closer to her family. So that was about a $500,000 house. And the one that we purchased was $250,000 at that time. This is 9 years ago. Then the parents, both of them died after 5 years. We resold that property, and we're now looking for the sister that lives here locally. She wants to downsize and buy another house. So that one process of making a mess with this mailing list it wasn't complete, it wasn't always accurate. I was missing like email addresses and various things, but they ultimately, over time, right now I'm sitting at about $2 million worth of business with them. And if I do another buy and sell in the price point for the sister that she wants, it's going to be another $1 million. Now, again, this is over a period of 9 years. But if you had everybody that called you that generated your $9 million, I mean, not 9 million, $2 to $3 million worth of business, and prices of houses have gone up now since I started in 9 years. But it's the little incremental steps that you do that you don't get immediate feedback, but you just stay in process. And it's an amazing business. It can also be discouraging. And the one thing that you have to know is that when you're in this kind of, and I say sales job because as a wholesale lumber broker, I was a salesperson for 30 odd years. And that's just the nature of being in sales. There are great days, there are lousy days, but within our structure of Keller Williams, you can always find some way either to talk to another agent, to attend a class that we give, reach out to your coach, lots of things that you can do to keep yourself motivated. And the business will grow exponentially as you grow. And and if you want it to slow down, if you've got something else going on for a little while, your business you may miss something, but your business is still going to be there. So all that said is sometimes we just have to make a mess when we're getting started. So our next slide says how buyers found their agent. And interestingly enough, referrals from friends, neighbors, relatives, and repeat buyers and clients are the number one way that we find our business. If you're new to the area, one of the ladies that started when I did, she lives out in Veneta. And so she started out she picked a neighborhood in Veneta. She didn't know anybody. She'd only recently moved here. And so she had this one specific neighborhood, and she would go and knock on doors, and she would do pop buys. Now, I don't know if you've heard of pop buys, but for example, she would leave a little gift for her at these doors, and people would answer the door, and she might leave them a little basket of a little bag that had a tag on it with her business card, and she'd give away popcorn, and she'd say, just popping by to say hello. And so if people didn't answer their door, she still left it. And she began to own that one little neighborhood. I think it's just a real small little street. And she's had 8 or 9 out of the, and I don't know how many houses are on there, but under 20 probably, or maybe around 20. But and then just the other day, she had met a lady 3 years ago, and the lady called her up. She says, "Hey, I want to sell my house." She had no idea that this lady was going to be looking to sell a house. So it's those small incremental steps and staying in motion that does create movement for you. I'm going to get up and close this door so we don't have the outside noise coming in. This conference room is just right off the reception desk, and so people sometimes don't realize that we're on a call or anything. So then it says that one of the other ways that buyers have found their agent is they've used you previously, or they've inquired about a property that they might have seen. They may have seen, if you have a listing, they may have seen your sign, and it's just a sign call. And before that sign call thing reminds me of something. I don't know if Mara has discussed this with you, and this is somewhat off topic. Sign calls, you don't know these people and you don't have a relationship with them. And a couple of years ago, I had a sign call on a commercial property, and it did look like it was a residential house that somebody had converted it into office space, but that wasn't the case. It had never been a house, so it didn't have an actual kitchen, and it had 2 bathrooms, but they didn't have showers and that sort of thing. So that particular property had gone into contract in a matter of like 24 or 48 hours. But so I said to this guy, I was just leaving town. I had to go down and do some business down in Medford. So I said, look, there's another couple houses that are houses that have been converted to commercial property. And they would, if they're in your price point, they would be a good option for you to look at. And and he sounded fairly young, but I didn't know him. And so I said, when I get back from my meeting in Medford, I'll send you these properties later on tonight, and then we can touch base. And why don't you just go and do a drive-by and look at these client full reports that I show you? Because if it's too much money for you, then, there's no reason to go look at it. But Keller Williams has a contract with a company called Forewarn, Fore, and then Warn. And so I had just barely got the app, and there is a cost. I think it's like $120 a year, but I could put his phone number in the into Forewarn, and up popped 12 different aliases for this guy. And the name that he gave me was one of them. And he was a 2-time sex offender, and he was young. He was under 30. And he just seemed so normal on the phone that without a doubt, had I not run him through my Forewarn app, I would have gone and shown that guy property. So just something for you to think about is, for your own protection, is having this app and paying for it so that you can have just an extra layer of security for yourself. So other ways that people can come to you is through your website. And the nice thing about our website now is that they do have a lead generation link there that they didn't used to have before. Then they get you from for sale or open house signs. And oddly enough, in 9 years, I have never gotten another listing from a house that I've had for sale just from that specifically. People would know that they knew that they'd see one of my listings or something like that, but just out of the blue, somebody that was a total stranger to me. I've never had it. And I know that it does happen. It's just not happened for me. But it is really good advertising to have that for sale sign out there anyway. Referrals from another agent, and this is something that I would highly recommend that you think about. I have one right now where I sold a house in April to a couple, or it was their house. I had sold it to them originally 5 years ago, and then she got a transfer to be a professor at the University of Iowa. And they moved to Iowa. And about 3 months after they were gone, her husband sends me an email and said, "Hey, I've got my father's property to sell in North Carolina, and we're really unhappy with the agent that's handling it. Do you know anybody back there by any chance?" And so I recommended them it to another agent. And what I did was I went on our Keller Williams site for referrals, and I typed in a Keller Williams agent, or I mean, North Carolina, and I looked at them, and I specifically wanted somebody. I didn't want a high volume agent. I wanted somebody that would have time to spend with these people. And so she did about 8 million a year. And I called her and I interviewed her and had quite a lengthy conversation with her. And I took, just looking at the pictures of the house, I said, I think it needs to be painted and on the interior. And it's an $800,000 house. So I sent it before I gave her the phone numbers and everything of this lead. I sent her the referral agreement asking for 25% of whatever she gets for commission. So, that and an $800,000 house, that can be, roughly $1,500 or $2,000 that will come my way whenever they get that place sold. So that can be a really good way um, to to generate business for yourself. I mean, just a nice added bonus. And I've done that several times, so it does work. And then also people will have visited an open house. And like told you earlier, my first buyer client was somebody that came to my very first listing. So it does happen. Okay. Command opportunities. I have no idea what they want us to talk about here. So I'll tell you what, in the land of true confessions, I have a transaction coordinator, and I don't do anything on command myself. So I'm not the person to talk to you about command. And so with that in mind, I'm going to skip over it.
Can I ask a question?
You certainly may, and I just encourage anybody to speak up anytime if you have a question.
So what's transaction coordinator? Can you tell me a little bit if I'm like don't want to do that? So do they have a person that who will do all that stuff for you? Just
Yeah,
quick to know that.
yeah. There's like in most of I would assume that this is true in all of the branches, but we have one that's her name is Brooke, that's in the Eugene office, and I have a one that is not a KW. She's not employed by KW at all, but they allow her to be able to be my transaction coordinator. And she actually had started as an agent the same time I did. And so she still has her agent's license, but she does the transaction coordinating. And so what that means is that I never write a contract myself. She is, she's one of them, and not all transaction coordinators are available to you on weekends, but she is. And so that's why I like to use her, because I seem to have more things that need to be handled in a short period of time, like writing an offer and that sort of thing. If I had to do it and go into my DocuSign and create it, I can do it myself, but I'm so rusty at it because I don't do it hardly ever. And so she does it all for me. So she'll write the offer and then DocuSign it, it comes back to me. Then I take it, download it, and then I send the email. If it's going back to, like, for example, if I'm making an offer on something, then I send it directly to the other agent myself. So the transaction coordinator does not do that. In small things, she'll keep track of the calendar, like if the earnest money hasn't come in, then she'll either remind me or she'll reach out directly to the other agent, the buyer's agent, if she knows that person, and say, hey, we haven't received your earnest money. But any addendum changes, coordination with lenders, if sometimes, or at least contact with lenders sometimes when it's on a seller listing that I have. But all of the paperwork, anything that requires, for example, the buyer broker agreement, she prepares that, sends it out for signatures. She has all of the passwords to my DocuSign and Zip forms. And so she sends it out, and then she sends it when you set it up that way, you can put who needs to sign, and then it comes to me for signature through DocuSign, and then it automatically, when it's completed, goes back, and so then she sends it to the appropriate people. So it's anything that requires signatures and communication with the buyers and sellers, and so she handles all of that. And it's kind of a coordinated effort. And in this person, she charges, I believe it's $350 per contract. And so some of them charge as much as $425 per contract. And you can set that up for that to be paid out of escrow. And then if it's a Keller Williams, if it's somebody that's employed by them, then they are often paid by Keller Williams before they're paid to, before you get the net check that comes to you. And I've never not had a transaction coordinator, because as a solo agent, number one, I didn't want to be responsible for having missed something that was really important in a document. And I just didn't want that liability. And I wanted somebody that, particularly when you're dealing with rural property, there's all kinds of things with septic tanks and different things that I just, you know, you might have a transaction once in 2 or 3 years, unless you're going to make your bread and butter on rural properties. You know, it's just worth every penny that I pay her, because she is very experienced with real estate, and she's been an agent, or still is an agent, and so it just works out really well for me.
Thank you. That's all. That's really good to know, because I was struggling, so that helps me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and
One question about it. What about if you go through and the contract, but didn't go through all the way, and something happened and they change? Would she still charge you for it?
yeah, there would be a certain amount of compensation that she wouldn't. Well, it depends on how long it went. You know, if it went right up to closing, you probably would have to pay the three and a quarter. It's interesting, because the previous transaction coordinator, if something fell out, she never charged me. But you
Mhm.
have to stop and think about it. She's got all these hours invested in it, and so
Yeah.
you can't expect them to work for nothing. So yeah, more than likely you'd have to pay.
Thank you.
And sometimes, like if it's only a few documents back and forth, you know, she might send me a bill for $50 or something like that, you know, if it's just something small. So yeah.
So about how much time would they put in for one transaction on
Well,
average?
no two transactions are the same. Right now I've got one that I wrote the listing contract June 1, and then I had them have well, first of all, they had to have a new roof put on, and it had to be painted, and it had to have brush cleared away. And this is a house in town, but you couldn't even see the house from the street. And it turned out super cute when it was all said and done. But then while I was still waiting for them to finish up with the painting, a smear of concrete fell off the front porch steps, and it revealed these red clay cinder blocks for foundation. And so I said, you know, I don't feel comfortable. We need to know what we're dealing with. And it had a basement. I said, we need to have a foundation specialist come out here and take a look at it. Well, long story short, the foundation was failing. It had a lot of water intrusion, and it happened because she had no downspouts that were connected to the drainage pipes that went out to the city sewer. So all of that water was dropping down directly alongside her foundation, and the foundation was caving inward. So that happened well, by then it was probably July. I decided to go ahead and list it after they had replaced the downspout and the drainage system, and they did a bunch of things, but we were waiting for the city permits on the final engineer report to redo and support the interior of the basement to shore it up. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but this is a $55,000 bill that this seller got that she wasn't expecting. So, as of this morning, we are still waiting we're in contract. We were supposed to close on October the 13th. But the buyer had written into the contract that he would not close until the foundation was fully repaired and the city had signed off on it. And I don't blame him. If I was a buyer's agent, that's what I would do as well. So as of today, they said that the city has asked a question of the engineer, another question, and every time they ask a question, it takes them 10 to 15 days to answer back on that question. So now we're looking at sometime in November, and it could be the end of November. So you've got the full month of July, August, September, October, and then it's going to close sometime in November. That's 5 months. Conversely, I had a condo that I went into contract with, and we closed in 3 weeks, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. So 3 weeks versus 5 months, and on the surface, they didn't look that much different. So there's not an easy answer to how long it takes for you to get to the closing table.
Your condo was 3 weeks?
On to get the sale for the condo?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and right now, because the volumes are down from where they used to be, I've had it done multiple times in this last year. I even had one close in 17 days in Portland last December, and it was financed through a company called rate.com. And they closed on the buyer end of it in 17 days. So having good lenders in your arsenal of contacts for your client base is really important. So when you go to training programs and maybe there's a speaker at a KW event or a Zoom session that has a lender, and we have an agreement with Envoy, and so I have not dealt with them, but they certainly seem to know their stuff. So I would, reserve their information. And so then when somebody needs a lender, you can give them, I like to give people like up to 3 choices. That way you're not steering them to, directly to one or another. And then they can talk to those people and kind of develop a feel, because your favorite lender may not be their favorite lender. But in this case, the one that closed in 17 days, I did give him only one, and she was actually up there in Lake Oswego, and she had saved another sale from falling through another lender. And so she has a special place in my heart because she can make stuff happen.
And what lender is that?
Her name is Dawn, Dawn Carter, and she's with rate.com. At the end, I'll give my email address, and you can email it me and just ask for her contact info, and I'll send it back to you.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so any ahas so far?
No, nothing so far.
I think I think it's encouraging that you had success right away. Because I mean, even though we're in tough times, I get that might slow us down a little bit, but I still think that there's opportunity still out there.
One of the agents that's in our office, her name is Ashley, and she started in 2008, that was when we had that big economic housing bust where lots of people were foreclosed on because they had no equity in their houses and had paid way too much for them, and it was just shady lending practices and all kinds of crazy stuff. And she built her business during that time. Uh, there there is always business, good market and bad. People have to sell their houses. The 55 and older, sometimes they become sick and they have to downsize. Maybe they're in a 2-bedroom house with bedrooms upstairs, and all of a sudden they have a stroke or something, and they can't even get to their bedroom, so they have to sell. People get transferred with jobs, so they have to sell and they have to buy. And I think about the statistic is somewhere around 40% of the buyers today are 55 and older. And I got a referral buyer the other day, and he has lived in Eugene before, but there was an agent that I had met, oddly enough, at an artisan bread baking class, and she was getting her real estate license, and I encouraged her to join Keller Williams. But once she did, she didn't do anything with it. Now, I haven't talked to her for 2 or 3 years, but she remembered me and she referred me to this guy in Medford as a buyer client. Now, I would never have gotten that client out of just by randomness, but somebody else referred me. So it's a crazy business, so I would just say keep the faith. And remember too, I started in June and I didn't get my first piece of business until December. And when he said, I want to list my house, then he got a bunch of pushback from his stepchildren. So then he called me and he said, I've got to wait. The kids are having a fit, blah, blah, blah. And but then the next month in January, he called me. He says, nope, I'm ready to move forward. So give me some people who can do the work, because he needed to have some yard work done and this and that. And then we were on the market in February. And then the very next month, I was doing the other deal with the buyer client that came to the open house. So yeah, but it still, it was 8 months into it before I actually got a paycheck. So, but you have to you have to kind of plant the seeds to get the crop to grow. So, and I wasn't in any big hurry. And so, I didn't feel like I had to have a paycheck like the next month, because that's just really unrealistic in this industry. I mean, I suppose it could happen, but it's not very realistic. Okay, so classify. Now this is for applies both for buyers and sellers, to classify them, and you'll hear this often, as being able, ready, and willing. And boy, that is the truth. And I'll tell you, this is the interesting thing about it, is that this referral that I got from Medford, this is the one that is so hard to actually feel any sort of intensity in working with them, because he said, well, I don't have to move right away, 6 months or a year. Well, how are you going to keep yourself motivated to continue to look for this person when they have no sense of urgency? So, I would say he would not be an A buyer being the most ready and willing, like somebody that's transferring in for a job, or somebody that's transferring out for a job and needs to sell their house right away, that sort of thing. Those are going to be your A people. A B person is going to be somebody that's, you think you've got them locked in as your client, and but they've got this 6 months to a year. Now, that being said, they could also be the type of person that would, and this was before the buyer broker stuff. Now, I haven't actually had this person sign the contract yet. I want to have a follow-up with him, because I showed him, just drove around in some neighborhoods with him a couple of weeks ago, so that we could kind of look to see where he really wanted to be. Because he gave me about 6 or 8 different places, and I said, this is going to be extremely hard to do. And he wanted to go to all of those places when he came up in a 2-hour period. And I didn't say that's not going to work, but So I haven't had him sign this buyer broker agreement, but you could invest a lot of time, sending this person, houses that can, in this case, this guy wants a modern designed house. So like sleek lines and sort of like a mid-century modern house would be, but a definite contemporary modern house. And we don't see that many of them here in Eugene. So I'm going to have him sign this contract. I just haven't met with my transaction coordinator to have her send it. I want to have a personal phone call with him. I've emailed him back and did some follow-up for him once he was out here, but I want to talk to him. Because emails, you know, and texts, that's not the same as having a person-to-person conversation. And I would say, if I could give you any tip at all, is to learn, if you don't have good communication skills on the phone, don't be afraid of it. And because particularly if you're dealing with 55 and older, they're going to be very comfortable talking on the phone too. But you can avoid people with, if you're only doing emails and texts, and not really get a good feel for that client. Focus becomes increasingly possible in direct proportion to how clear you are about what you want, when you want it, and what you must do to get it. That's a Gary Keller from the Millionaire Real Estate book. Have you all read that book?
No.
Yes,
In the
it's a note. I
process.
read it. Yeah, you know, it's a hard, I mean, for me, it was hard to read in the beginning, because the business in itself seems to be so overwhelming in the beginning. I think it's one of those that you read a little bit of it, and then you keep coming back to it when you've gained a little bit more knowledge and that sort of thing. Because, I mean, we can, as people that are trying to help you as a new agent, we can flood your brain with so much stuff that you really do have to be focused on the little things. And that's why I like to give you the suggestion right up front about making sure that you've got your contacts, anybody, and especially family. Don't forget family, that they know what you're doing. And I'll tell you a funny story. My brother and I, we couldn't be more different. I've been to Washington, D.C. for training. I was certified as an etiquette consultant back in 1995. I've given how to dine classes for 30 years. It was just something I was passionate about. I liked doing it. It wasn't my career, but I did it very professionally. And I've given all kinds of classes for kids and adults. And I've been hired by people like the World Travel Association. They flew me to Victoria, British Columbia. And I mean, it was a fun, and has been, and continues to be fun. I've written a book about dining and that sort of thing. That's me. And I garden and I cook and that sort of thing. My brother is a total outdoorsman. He likes to hunt, and he's older now, so he doesn't they would call it running bear, but he had these pretty good size hound dogs, and they would just tree the bear. They didn't necessarily shoot him, and they'd run cougar and that sort of thing. And he lives over there in Heppner, but he would go up into the Blue Mountains to do all of that. And Heppner's pretty, you know, it's got a lot of forests around there too, up on the back hills and everything. But so, you know, I didn't really think too much about including him, and he's like 5-6 hours away from me. And I didn't think that much about including him, knowing about my business and everything. Well, one of his daughters lives in Portland, and I'm super close to both of his daughters. And one of them wanted to buy a house in Portland, and she and her husband, he had bought a house when he was 18, but they'd outgrown it. It was only like 900 square feet, and they had 2 kids, and his father became ill and needed to live with them, and so they had no space. So I ended up buying and selling a house for my niece. And so she tells my brother, because he had this little rental house that he was getting ready to sell. And so she says, "Hey, Dad, you should talk to Aunt Linda about selling your house." And I never thought about selling a house in Heppner. I mean, it's way to heck and gone. There's only about 1,200 people that live there. And so anyway, he calls me up out of the blue, and he was saying, like, he had talked to some appraiser lady that he knew. He knew everybody in town because he did refrigeration and air conditioning repair. And she said, "Oh, well, it's worth about 80,000." Now, houses in Heppner don't sell for very much compared to these urban cities. And I said, "Don't do anything." He says, "I've got somebody that wants to buy it." I said, "Don't do anything until I run some comps." And so I ran the comps. I called him back and I said, "We should be able to get you at least 119,000 out of that." And he was just totally blown away. And I made the mistake because I stage houses for my listings if they're vacant for free. And I have the furniture enough to do 2 houses now. And I'm fortunate because I've got a storage building on my own property. So um, I don't have to rent storage and that sort of thing. And so anyway, I said, "Oh, I'll stage it." Well, I didn't really think about how much it would cost me to rent a vehicle to drive that far, because it's like about I don't know, I don't know, it's not 500 miles, it's at least 300 miles over there. And at like $1.29 or something, or $1.39 a mile, times 2, because it's 300 miles each way. So I actually lost money on the whole transaction, but it was just kind of a funny thing. And I ended up selling that property for him for 152,000. And he was willing to take 80,000 because he didn't know the market, and this lady that he trusted, who was an appraiser, told him it was worth about 8, because he said to her, "Well, this is what it's on the tax rolls for." And the appraiser goes, "Yeah, that sounds about right." Well, times 2. So anyway, just don't forget the obvious, because they can come and help you a lot along the way. So all right. So let's see, we're going to skip that one. So this gives you a timeline for these ready, willing, and able buyers. So that one that I told you, my Medford person that I said would be a B buyer, according to this, they would be a C buyer, because they're saying 66 months to a year. But I want to go back a little bit in discussing this guy with you, because this is purely this guy doesn't know me, he's just referred to me. So he's not going to be all that dedicated to making sure that he always has me as his agent at this point. This is the kind of person that could drive up here and go to an open house, and if I don't have that buyer broker agreement signed, and maybe I only had him sign it for 30 days, maybe he wouldn't sign it for a year, and would walk into an open house and buy and fall in love with the house, and have a listing agent represent him as well, and buy it and ace me out. And so when they say they're that 6 months to a year out, I treat them, once I have that buyer broker agreement signed, I treat them as though they are an A or a B buyer, because I've just seen it happen too many times that they're more ready than they're willing to tell you. And true, he may not find the perfect house for 6 months to a year, but I just start treating them like they're an A buyer, A and B buyer. Okay, so the next section is about qualifying these people. Why qualify? Okay, so this is, I don't know what document means. That must mean our agreements. And then following a checklist. And I don't care how you do checklists, whether you have it in the notes section on your phone, or whether you do it on a paper document. And I'm old school that way. I love to make lists, and I love checking things off. And I like doing it on paper. And it's easy to update it, if you have it on a Word file and that sort of thing, or if it's on a sticky note. I don't care, but I like lists. And I think that we all accomplish more when we start off our day with the things that we have to get done. If they're not on the list, it's kind of like if you have an appointment, it until it's in your calendar, it's not, it's something that you can forget. And so you just checklists to me are just so important. And then of course our fair housing regulation. Now, this is a lead sheet. I have not worked with lead sheets, but I think they're an excellent idea. I once I just get started, I create a file for someone, and so I have some other sheets, but this looks like it would be. I haven't seen this document before, so pardon me while I look through my bifocals here. Yeah, this has got some really good information. So this might be something that we could download from Command in the educational section of it, but very important. And like this at the bottom of this first page here on the buyer consultation, is there anybody else buying the home with you? And boy, is that ever important to know that right up front if you're dealing with both, and you'll figure out, because oftentimes they are not, if you have a husband and wife, they are not equal in terms of who's making the decisions. There's generally one that's more of the decision maker than the other.
Sometimes it
but-
seems like one of them is in control of the money and the other one isn't.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. Yeah, this is where you have to become a psychiatrist or psychologist, because there's so much psychology that goes into working with buyers and sellers, and you really do. You have to listen carefully, and sometimes you have to learn just to be quiet too, because you can kind of ruin your own deal sometimes by talking too much. So anyway, I think that both of these are good. I know for myself, when I get a buyer lead, the getting just going through some of the basics with them first, because we can't show anything until we've got that buyer broker agreement, even if it's a 1 day only agreement. And so to me, there's some of the other steps that we have to take before we can have a full out consultation. And lots of times the buyers, sometimes they're going to be somebody that's qualified, that them. And so you have a better rapport with them and being able to ask them more in-depth questions and that sort of thing. And then some of them are going to be total strangers. And here's a funny thing about how this sort of works, is that, remember I was telling you about this lady that now I've done up close to $2 million worth of business with her and her sister, and my first buyer client, and they have become like family to me. It's so funny. We meet quarterly for lunch, and we either go out or they come to my house, and we just do fun events together. And so they have really become, just people that I cherish in my life. And it's just a crazy business what can happen. And of course, then they can give you referrals. So anyway, I would say check out this. Can I separate these? Oh, I can. How exciting. Okay, so they find out if they're renting. Yeah, these look like some really good. This is something like I would have this, like, let's just say that you were having an open house. I think it would be a good idea to have this, and especially if someone really expressed a lot of good information. I mean, not good information, expressed a lot of interest in being a buyer. And so sometimes this could be a good cheat sheet for you to learn how to remember which questions to ask. And this one here, are you currently renting now, or do you own? And if you wanted to buy, do you have to sell your own house first? And yeah, all of those, learning how to ask good questions is really important. But yeah, this I think could be a good tool for you. This has, yeah, I'm looking at this second sheet here, and it says, when you need to be in your new home. Yes, this has got really good information. We're not doing role play. Okay, so these are touch plans, and these are different ways to communicate with your database. I don't do a full 36 touch. The vast majority of my business is from people that I know, referrals, and open houses. And kind of another interesting story about how you get clients. One day I was in my own neighborhood, and I was driving down a main street, approaching my house. It was only like 2 or 3 blocks from my house. And it was the house didn't look to be in great shape, and they had all kinds of stuff out on the front lawn. The lawn was all dried up and everything. And but they were having an estate sale or a garage sale. And so I pull in there, and I see this young lady. She's in the garage, and turned out she was the granddaughter of the lady who was selling the property. So I said to her, "Is this property going to be for sale?" And she says, "Yes, eventually when we get it cleaned up." And so I just gave her my business card, and I said, "I just live a couple of streets away. So when your grandmother gets ready, have her reach out to me, or I can reach out to her, but I won't know when you're ready." So anyway, I had a really nice conversation with her. And so I went and I looked up to see who exactly owned that property. And it turned out that she had an adjoining house that was on the next street over, but their corners touched to this one particular piece of property. Well, I didn't do any further research to see what else she owned. And so I did. Remember, I was telling you earlier about my friend in Veneta that does the drop-bys? Well, this lady was, she was either late 70s or early 80s. And little did I know that she had a sweet tooth. But every holiday, like Valentine's Day, Easter, Halloween, whatever, I would drop her off either baked cookies or uh, some sourdough bread, or just anything that I had made, just as a way to stay in touch. And I would put it on this little bench that she had out in the front of her front door. And sometimes I would just take her flowers and stuff like that. And so anyway, eventually she calls me, and she wanted to have her daughter-in-law, and they wanted to both come and interview me. And I met them at the house. Well, I got the job, and I ended up selling that piece of property. I staged it and everything, and she got, at that time it sold for 190. And after it was all said and done, she says, "I didn't think we'd get over $100,000 for that piece of property." But so she had 2 vacant lots that adjoined the property. One of them, well, they both adjoined her house, and or touched her house in some way. I sold her house. So I sold 4 pieces of property for that lady, and that was all because I stopped at that garage sale, asked a few questions, and then my touch was by dropping off fresh baked goods. And that's how I kept in contact with her. And that's how, it generated that sort of business. And then her son gave me a referral for a friend of his that was moving up and wanted to buy a house over along the coast. And that was during COVID. So I was bored to death because I wasn't doing a whole lot of business during COVID. So we went over, and only went over a couple times, bought a house for him. And now he's getting ready to sell the house because he's developing dementia. And so his daughter called me from Texas and said, "We're moving him back to Texas." So that will ultimately end up being 6 pieces of business from stopping by at an open house. So you can develop your own touch systems with people that fit you. And And for a lot of my people, they would tell me to quit calling them if I reached out to them 36 times. But you just kind of have to know who you're talking to. But it works, or else Keller Williams wouldn't recommend that you do that. So, all right. So we have a pre-listing for our sellers. We have a pre-listing questionnaire. And some of this is, they'll tell you right up front. So half of these questions you will know in the first phone call when they call you. But all of these are good. And this is another thing that comes to my mind in both of these lists that they have shown. I have done a lot of open houses, and I do them sometimes for other agents. If I'm not busy, I'll go and do them just for the heck of it. And I like to, because it kind of keeps me on the pulse of what's going on in the market and how many people show up and just what people are looking for. So I like to do them even if I don't get a lead from doing the open house. But these questionnaires are really good for helping you develop how to talk to people about what, from their either buy side or sell side. And I know when I was first starting, it was like, I just need to know what to say. That was just, I didn't want to ever get stuck. And, I, even that very first listing that I had, he never said, how many houses have you sold? I was never, ever asked if I was a new agent. And so I would always fall back on, that's a great question. Let me check with my office and I will get back to you within 24 hours. Or I'll call you later tonight. But usually I would just say 24 hours. So that way, if I couldn't get a hold of Mara or somebody else, I could, I was doing what I promised that I would do. And that's one of the things that people hate about realtors, if they'll meet them at an open house and then they ask questions and then the realtor never responds back to them. And unfortunately, that does happen and people fall through the cracks. And so you just want to be the one that's there to pick them up. But these are all really good questions. And I know that this is not a session on open houses, but and this goes back to not knowing what to say. In the process of doing these open houses, I always like people to sign in. It's very difficult to get them to do it. And I would say that 50% of the people will, and 50%, act like you have the plague and they're not going to sign and think that you're a used car salesman or something else of the like. So what I do is I always wear a name tag so that they can know that I'm the realtor, not one of the people that's just touring the house. If there's a lot of people there. But when they come in, I introduce myself and I'll say, I'm Linda Reed. I'm the listing agent. So I'm representing the seller. Are you here looking for yourself today, or are you a neighbor? And it's one of those things that they'll say, yeah, I do live around the neighborhood. They never like to admit it. And she's like, yeah, I just wanted to see the house. I go, great, just have a look. And then you start developing rapport with that person, and you never know when they're going to sell their house. So I like that approach where I introduce myself, and then most of the time they will introduce themselves back to you. And if you have a good memory, you can just put that in your little memory banks and then repeat their name, like, so that say, well, my name's Joan Collins, and you could say, oh, Joan, well, I'm glad that you stopped by my open house today. Are you here, Joan, as a buyer, or are you here, Joan, looking to, or are you one of the neighbors? And if you repeat their name 2 or 3 times, then you'll remember it. And people always like to be called by their name, because so many people don't make an effort to remember their name. And if I have a piece of paper, the minute that person starts looking around, and I will write on my sign-in sheet their name, and I write a little note that they're a neighbor. And sometimes I can get out of them what their address is. And then if I've developed enough and had enough questions going back and forth, then sometimes I ask them if they wouldn't mind signing my sheet. And if I think that it's not going anywhere, I don't pressure them to do it, because they're not going to do it if they don't want to. So it can just feel awkward. But I have had good success by, especially when I say, are you here as a buyer? Are you looking for yourself? Are you looking for a family member? Or I'll say, or are you one of the neighbors? But a lot of times, if it's it's amazing how many people are looking for somebody else when they come through. So anyway, all that said, that's just some of the language that I use when I'm trying to source out who could be a good lead at an open house. It also develops some sort of rapport with that person that's coming through. To whether or not they like you and whether they would, and if they pick up, like I keep a stack of my football magnets for this time of year. I keep a stack of those on hand, and I'll just hand them to the people and I'll say, hey, look, here's my contact info, but it's also a magnet. They're harder to lose than a business card. And then they'll laugh and they'll take my magnet, and I also keep my 12-month calendar magnet with me at my open house. And same thing, they can put it on their refrigerator or on a filing cabinet or something, and then they have your contact information. And but when I say to them that they're harder to lose than a business card, then they all laugh. So I like to keep it kind of light, and then it doesn't feel salesy. So we're back to our touch plans again for quarterly phone calls, emails, newsletters, direct mail. And what I do is I probably do consistently 14 touches where I have monthly mailings for these free things, whether it's a free like Subway sandwich or a teriyaki bowl or a car wash or a truffle on Valentine's Day. I do those, and then I do the football magnets and the calendars at the end of the year. And those, and I don't do an email yet, and I have signed up for a company that's going to help me a little bit with my social media through AI. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time learning AI, so I went with an option of having something that I can just do drop and drag and customize it to myself. And so I'm still working on that, but so we'll see how that works out. Okay, any questions at this point?
I have a question, just out of curiosity. So on those mailers that you send out for a free sandwich or whatever, how many percentage of people actually redeem that?
Well, it depends. So for example, the car wash is probably the most popular one. And I would say out of 200, probably 40 people will redeem those. And if the car wash is like a $10 car wash, then my cost is $5. So
Per?
yeah. Yeah. And then, for example, in April, she sends out one for a $5 coupon for this flower shop, and it's called Irwin's Quality Plants. And so I know the lady that has the company. It used to be her dad's company, and she bought them out. And so it's interesting. It's a completely different group of people that redeem for the flowers than redeem for the car washes. So it's always really interesting, but it just keeps your name in front of them once a month. And if it's a coupon that they're going to use, it stays on their kitchen counter for 30 days until it expires if they haven't used it. So it's very effective in that way. Okay, so this is our lead follow-up plan. And I would say if there's a weak spot in agents' business, especially in the beginning, is follow-up. And follow up from open houses. I'm pretty good about that. If I get their address and everything, I either text them or I send a handwritten note with to include my business card, even if they took it. And I mail it to their home address. And then I may follow up a week later and just give them a quick call and say, did you have any questions? Can I, is there something that I can be of help to you? Any number of things, just depending on the quality of conversation that I had with them. The second thing that I would say about getting your leads is don't lose a lead. Now, how many have I lost? Too dang many. I will have an open house and then somebody comes through and I didn't get any contact, or I did get contact information and I sent them one thing and then I never followed up again. And that's where Command does have a really good, if you get started with Command in the beginning of your business, I think that it will serve you well. You're already paying for it in your monthly fees anyway. You might as well have it. It's better than no plan at all. When I first started Command, we didn't have Command and it was in its baby stages. And so that's where I didn't get started on the best foot with Command. And I just didn't, I didn't do what I was supposed to do because I was used to being my own boss. And so I just didn't do it. But I would say to you, don't follow me in that regard. Use it because it can't hurt. And it's keeping you in motion. That said, don't spend all your time trying to develop that either. You've got to be out there touching, shaking hands and meeting people. Because that's going to be your greatest success.
Yeah, my last open houses have been bus. It feels like a bus, but maybe they're not because I did go around the neighborhood and leave my business card around, but it's hard to know.
Well, this is a slow brewed business. Once in a while you get lucky and you get a contact that's an instant business. Who would have thought that artisan bread baking class that I took in 2019 was going to, in 2025, produce a buyer lead for me?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't predict it. I mean, you can't make up some of this stuff. So, yeah, and open houses are, they're kind of a crazy deal. I never have them on a Saturday of a Duck football game. That's just my own personal thing, mainly because I like to watch the game. But there's a large percentage of the population that's not going to come. Now, not everybody's a football fan, so you could get a few. But I was talking to my neighbor the other day, and she had a garage sale. She said, "Well, I made a mistake of having it on a Duck weekend." I go, "Yeah, you could have asked me. I could have told you that." But anyway, we just laughed and so then and the time that you select to have them, that's also, Saturdays. I like to have them like from 11 to 1 or from 12 to 2. I started out having them for 3 hours, but when you have a slow one and you don't get anybody there, 3 hours is like 3 hours too long. So I have gotten where I've converted back to just doing them as a 2 hour. And then, if they show up, they show up. And if they don't, then I'm packing up and getting out, because you still have to pick up all your signs that you've put out. And in the beginning, you got to go and buy your balloons to attach to those signs. So still a 2-hour open house can end up taking you 4 hours out of your day. So,
you know what's
yeah.
funny about that is the last Keller Williams extravaganza for open houses was on a Duck game day. I was like, oh, but because
Well,
another agent and I were talking about it, and I said, yeah, I don't expect to get anybody, and because it was a Duck game day.
Well,
That was
it
a horrible weekend.
It
But
wasn't.
you know,
a
I got a
home
sale
game.
out of it.
You did get a sale out of it?
I did. The lady below, it was interesting because she didn't look too well. And her daughter texted me the next day, and her mom has Alzheimer's, and she's buying the condo that I did
Oh.
that day. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna
Well,
complain.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's a crazy business. I mean, you can have some parameters, but it doesn't mean that there isn't that outlier that's not going to come through. Now, I know the first time that they had the extravaganza, it was a home football game. But when you get into like August 30th is when the season starts, generally. I mean, that last weekend of August. But virtually every other weekend, it's going to be a home game. And so it's when it's a home game, because the last extravaganza that they had, I know that they were particularly had planned it to not be a home game. But that doesn't mean that the Duck fans aren't watching it on TV because they're all televised. So, yeah, that's why when it's a football thing, then I don't do it on a Saturday. Then I'll just have it on a Sunday instead. Because, for one thing, I'm a huge Duck fan, so I don't want to miss the game. All right, so we've kind of talked about staying on top of mind, and we do that by whether we are sending out emails, whether we're sending out some kind of monthly or quarterly conversation where we're calling them quarterly with a personal phone call, or figure out a way. And some people do it by picking people whose last names are like starting with the alphabet. So the A's and the Z's, like their last name begins with an A or a Z. And then that particular week or month, those are the people that you call on your, and until you go through the whole line. But you've got to figure out what works for you, and there's any number of ways to do it. And I created a Facebook page for myself when I first started, a business page and a personal page. And so I would post on both of them. I would share my real estate page, and then finally go, I'm not getting any coverage because Facebook wanted you to buy ads. So instead, I just post my, anything related to real estate that I want. I just try to do it once a week or whatever, put one up there. And I always show them when I'm staging and or loading a van, or show the coming soon and things like that. And so that people know that I'm still in the business and I'm still working it, but it's not an in your face where they're getting flooded with tons of my postings about real estate. But Facebook has been a really big, an easy and no cost way for me to post on my personal page the things that I'm doing in real estate. And so if you're at all, a Facebook person or Instagram, I've never really liked Instagram. It wasn't as user friendly, I didn't think. And but that's just personal opinion. And you sometimes you just do what is the easiest for you. But anyway, but I am hoping to get some leverage out of this AI, where I'm trying to create something different. And that will be only on my business pages, because that's the way that it works with this particular venue. And LinkedIn, which I've been a member of forever because of my other business that I had, my etiquette business. So I'm kind of excited about trying something new. And so we'll see how it goes. But however it is, you can't really go wrong as long as you're doing something that's movement that puts you in front of your clients or prospective clients. So this we have, how has your thinking changed, or what ideas or mindsets were new? Anything that cropped up there to you?
I think that this like he said in the beginning, you just got to shake every bush and all of that. I think it's true. I said, you can't seem to stick to one subject in the beginning. I said, I think you have to try different ones until you find what you like and what seems to work in your community.
Yeah, and the you don't know what you don't know
Well,
when you're
that's
starting.
true.
And so yeah, I think that I opted in the beginning for doing and I opted for doing open houses in the beginning, mainly because I had that listing that came first. And so then I did a 2-day open house with it in the snow. And after the very first day that I had it, I had to go buy an indoor doormat because they were tromping water through the whole house as they trudged through the snow. So I mean, you learn all kinds of things, but I liked the people contact, and I felt like that was a stronger suit for me. And so I didn't mind doing the open houses. And so a lot of people will say, well, if you've got an open house and nobody shows up, they'll say, well, I I catch up on sending emails or this or that. And you know, I don't know. I'm not crazy about that whole idea because I don't like somebody says, well, I write my thank you notes then. Well, I wouldn't want to be at an open house and have all these thank you notes sprawled out, writing notes to people, and then all of a sudden somebody shows up and then you got to cover everything up or put it away. It's like, no, I'm just gonna wander around here in this house until somebody shows up. And so, but you know, you just have to figure out what's you know, try multiple things. So the next says, how will your behaviors be different going forward? What actions will you take? And then what tools, models, or systems will you use?
Well, I've definitely got to use my command. I haven't
It's
been,
a pretty,
it's hard to
Yeah.
put everything in every day. And they keep sending me emails. Tell us about your day. So they keep sending me these reminders and I'm like, okay, I know I got to do it, but
Yeah.
it's
Well,
hard
you
because
know,
I've been trying to write a condo up and I'm learning because the listing agent just basically told me to go find my own HOAs. So I'm like trying to figure this out.
so the listing agent didn't provide you with them?
Nope. She sent me, her coordinator sent me uh basically a piece of paper, two pieces of paper that they put on there with the listing and said you need to contact the HOA organization yourself as soon as possible. I'm just like, what the heck?
Well, so you're representing the buyer.
Yes.
Okay. Have you reached out to the HOA?
I did. Yeah, I did it before they even sent me that because I just had a bad feeling. I don't know why I had that feeling, but I had just taken Stacy's class on that, so I was like prepared for it, I guess, to a lot of degrees.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's an interesting business because sometimes you have listing agents that will provide you with everything. And like for me, for example, I'll get my seller disclosure signed right after I do the listing agreement. And then I just post it up in my in the RMLS listing it when I'm doing the listing load. So you can put 5 documents on there. So I load it up right there so that anybody that's going to even show the property can preview that seller stock if they want. And the same with the HOAs. You can upload those sorts of things as a listing agent. You can upload those to your RMLS listing as well. And then in the private remarks, I usually remind agents that those documents are there because you'd be surprised at how few people actually look at the listing to see that there are additional documents that are there. But it's not uncommon for listing agents not to have all of that HOA information. And it's funny, the owners of those condos, you know, they've had to deal with these HOAs for all that time. It's amazing how few of them have contact information themselves, except for where to pay the bill.
Exactly.
So Yeah,
Well, I
but-
think the interesting part for me is that I contacted the HOA lady, and then she didn't send me anything. So then I contacted her again, and she goes, "Well, you didn't tell me what you wanted." And I'm like, "Okay." So then what I did is I took the Form 011 and I highlighted all the documents I needed and put on there void, so they were voided. And then I sent her that so that she would know what documents I needed. And so she has sent me some, but what's interesting is she wanted the email and the phone number of the buyer because she wants to make sure they understand the contracts and she wants to talk to them. I'm like, well, you could make me lose the sale, is what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know if that's normal or not, but
Huh. I've not encountered that, and I've sold a number of condos. So yeah, boy, that's a new one on me. But a lot of times the condos have a website, the condominium association, and that has to be listed on the actual listing itself. And usually they have the contact email and the contact telephone number and the name of the person for a buyer's agent to reach out and ask for the information. And most of the time people want to know things like, can I have pets? Can I rent this condo out if I don't live in it? And where do my people park? And, it's some pretty basic things, but there's also some really big things that people need to know. And financials that's a separate thing, but financials for somebody buying a condo is really important for them to have. And I think now you have to request 24 months of not only meeting notes, but of financials. So you can, and I'll give you an example. I sold a condominium here in Eugene in the South Hills I've sold a couple of them in the South Hills that two different condominium associations. And one of them was on flat ground, one of them was on a hillside, and both of them had substructure work that needed to be done. And the HOA ultimately paid for that. And that came out of their reserve funds. But the condominium complex that's built on the side of the hill, and it was built in the late 70s, they have really substantial, the support beams underneath are leaning. And so every time that one of the units sell, then they go in and repair those. But they know that they've got a big liability there, and just the cost that they have to accrue to pay for these repairs as the units are sold. So sometimes there becomes an assessment that they charge to these condominium complex owners. And that's really important for your buyer to know is there any, and that should be on one of the disclosures, is there any upcoming assessment that you know about that the association is going to reveal? Because the one condominium complex that's on flat ground that I sold from, they had T111 siding that was getting old, and they had quite a few units. It was set on 8 acres, and so their HOA dues were high, and this is like 9 years ago, they were $300 and some dollars. And so today, some of those are over $500 per month. And when you're talking about debt to income ratio for somebody that's buying condominium, that's high for them to have an additional $500 a month. But condos, from that regard, they can be risky for a buyer if there are big liabilities. So it's really important to look at those minutes and see and read those yourself to find out that, because sometimes a buyer won't read them in detail, but you want to make sure that they're fully aware of what they're reading. So it is really important because they could be buying something that's going to have a huge assessment that they weren't planning on.
And you said I need 24 months of their
I think
financials?
that's what and sometimes that's a requirement by the lenders also, but I think
They're
it's
not, they're paying
24.
cash.
Oh, yeah. Well, still a good idea to get 24 months of, and like I said, if they have a website, this last condo that I just sold last month, they had a website that all of that stuff was loaded right on the website, and I could just go right in there and download it.
Sweet.
It was
Oh,
super
okay.
easy. Yeah. So
It's
some of
really
them
weird
have that.
It's weird because the HOA lady, I mean, why does she want the buyer's phone number and email and all of that? It's kind of weird. I feel like she's trying to control the situation.
Well, it's not her responsibility to know, for them to know if that buyer understands what she's reading. But she's,
Exactly.
yeah, I wouldn't give it to her myself. And
Yeah.
I would say I'm not giving out, I would say to him that I'd have to ask my buyer first for permission to give out her name and number. And then, but I don't know, I'd be pretty reluctant. I'd talk to my principal broker in my office before I'd ever release that to get some good language on how to handle it. I've never had them ask me that one, and I've sold a number of condos, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
unfortunately, I told her that. I told her, well, I'll have to ask my client. So then, of course, my client said, yeah, give it to her. And the client knows her, so I guess.
oh, well, that's probably not a problem there. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I mean, you had the right spidey senses that you know, to protect yourself, protect your business, and protect your client. So, okay.
Sorry, I
So
didn't mean to get
anybody?
off track.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's what it's all about, is just information sharing here. So, okay, success system. Oh, well, let's see. Can't control my mouse. So daily success system. And, you know, boy, I mean, I know that this is the game plan, and you have to be really efficient to get all of those things done and still being out there making contacts with people and keeping appointments. And especially, like, let's just say you have a buyer client and you're searching hard to find that property for them, and then you have to go and show them property that afternoon or right in the middle of the day or anything. So I think it's really good to have that daily system, but you've got to really be time blocking everything. And do I do that? Not exactly. I mean, I do time block in the sense that but for me, I will skip a lot of the things that are on there. And could I have a more successful business if I did all of them? Probably. So it just depends on how driven you are.
Yeah, I'm just I mean, I understand the principle, and it's certainly a good goal.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that that all of that is achievable unless you're working, 12 hours a day. And guess what? I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, just for example, if you look at the 10 handwritten notes, you've got to have 10 contacts from someplace to be able to have 10 people to write the handwritten notes.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
that's
I have only been here a very short period of time, 3 weeks, and I haven't lived in this area for 45 years. So I'm really relying on farming. In fact, I met with the title company this morning, and they've sent me a list of 6,000 people to write to, and I'm going to send out you know letters to them, and in a hopes of building a group of contacts, and ultimately closing on some sales. But I live in rural Oregon. 10 conversations? I don't see 10 people every day.
yeah,
Days
the
Creek
interesting,
has 25 people.
yeah, that's a, you would be probably better served to drive from one house to the next and have your business card or like a magnetic calendar or something for the next year that you can give them. And introduce yourself, tell them you're just getting started and that sort of thing. And then if they know of anybody that wants to buy, sell, or invest, to keep you in mind. But the thing is that and that's basically a door knocking strategy. But two things. One, let me jump back to the farming. One of the things about farming that's really interesting is that they can do analytics where they have can tell you which of the people are the most likely to sell in the next, say 6 months or a year period of time. And so it can be very effective. The one thing that I would say about it is that make sure that, and I think that, is your website up and running? Your KW website?
My KW website is, yes.
Okay, because it does have a lead capture on there. And so a lead capture is that, for example, if you had a listing and people were looking at it and they could click on say it was a buyer client, and oftentimes people that sell in rural properties will do both represent a buyer and a seller. And for example, like when my brother had that property for sale in Heppner, the buyer's agent that sold the property told me that, and of course the local agents, they were all miffed that somebody from Eugene was selling a Heppner property. And I said, well, it's my brother, of course he's going to deal with me. But this guy said to me, he says, well, I like 99% of the time do both ends of the deal. So, but having that lead capture, no matter what you're doing, where if people visit your website for any particular reason, then you can get their name and address. And you set that up by only allowing them to view X number of properties before they have to give you their information. But I would, the one thing, as you're getting started, I would, if you're going to do, as I suggested, where you would just kind of just virtually go and knock on people's doors or drive out to their properties and whatnot, I would give them something so that you're bringing them value at that time. So it's not just you saying, I'm looking for a job, basically. So give them something of value, whether it's market information or if they wanted to know what their property was worth, and then they would give you their email and you could do an analysis of the property. But the one thing about that is you have to realistically have to see the inside of that. And, if you have some little old lady out in some farm country, she's probably not going to let you inside her house as a total stranger to, view her house to be able to tell her. So that one I'd be a little bit careful of. On the other hand, some of those little farm ladies are pretty darn tough. And so, but anyway,
Yeah,
but try
I
to
think that for me, my strategy is going to be to, in the immediate area, say within a 10-mile radius of where I live, there's about 270 properties that have exchanged hands over the last, 5 or 10 years. So I'm going to write to them and say, are you interested? I'm not going to get involved. It's a very simple letter. If you are looking to buy or sell, please give me a call, and see where I get with that. I mean, in this area, because I came down from Portland and I started looking at expired listings, and there was only 11. And I spent all day looking on Facebook, LinkedIn, and True People, trying to get phone numbers, and came up with nothing. So I wrote to all of those people with this very simple letter, and I got 11 responses.
Wow.
I mean, I was flabbergasted. Of course, only one of those responses I think will maybe end up with a listing. and those are the people who I physically went to their house. You know, just because they happened to be down the road and I was in town, and I thought, well, you know, let me give this a shot. I can find out from them directly why they think their you know, their listing failed. But I mean, I think that there is this tendency, if you know, because of COVID and because everybody emails now, if you get a letter in snail mail, you open it and you read it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think I think that's great. The other thing that I would say, because you're in a rural area and you're picking on, you know, you're kind of targeting these people that live near you, for like $80, you can order a sign and they have them where you can upload your photo to it. And it's a sign that you put out. It's kind of like a for sale sign, but it's got, it comes with its own frame and all of that. I think it does. But the frames are cheap. And it says it'll have your name on it, and like I have one in front of my house, and it says it has my name, and then it says your local realtor lives here, and so it just
Could
sits
you
in
send
front.
out the link to that? That really sounds great. And thank you, kid. If you could send out the link to that that place in the, you know,
Yeah,
either
I'll have to look it up, but when I first bought it, I just Googled it, real estate signs. And that's all I did. But I'll see if I can figure out which one that I ordered it from, because I'm sure that they're still sending me emails.
Mhm.
Let me give all of you my contact information. So my email address is Linda, LINDA .reed, REED at kw.com. And my phone number is 541-953-3011. So for anybody who wants a link to that sign, just send me an email, because I don't have your emails in I'm not provided with that. I could look it up, but I'd have to print off the list and everything of who all you are that attended. So just send me a quick email or text, and then I'll send that out to you. But like I said, I just went to Google and I typed in real estate signs, and then they popped up, but I funny story about it, and then I'll let you guys go and we'll quit. I mean, we'll be ending a little bit early here, but one day I'm out there and I have a lot of flowers in my front yard, and so I'm emptying the garbage or doing something, and there's this mother-daughter duo that's out in front of my house, and they've got their camera out, and so the daughter's taking a picture of my house, and she says, "Oh, I'm so excited." She said, "I just sent a picture of your house or of your sign and a picture of your house to my husband and told him I found the perfect house." And I said, "You mean a house that's for sale?" And she said, "Yes." And I go, "Well, that sign says that I live here. It doesn't say that the house is for sale." So I said, "I'm not ready to sell yet." So, but anyway, it was pretty funny. She was so excited. She goes, "I found it. I found it." Oh God. It was hilarious. But
How
I
many
haven't,
leads have you gotten off of that sign?
I don't think I've had any. I've had it up probably 6 months or so. And I'm not on a main thoroughfare, so it's walkers that walk by and that sort of thing that might get it. But I've had a couple people that I've been out, out there working in the yard, and they'll say something, "Oh yeah, you are a realtor. Yeah, that's good to know," and things like that. So otherwise they wouldn't know. I mean, I don't affiliate with my neighbors except for to say hello when I see them out getting the mail or whatever. So uh, because why live in silence? It's got my phone number and my photo and all of that. But heck, it's on my signs anyway if I had a for sale sign out somewhere. So I don't feel any risk in doing that. But yeah, I thought it was a great idea. So we'll see. Can't hurt. And it just means it's like when you're qualifying your A, B, and C buyers, it just means not yet. You know, and you just never know when it's going to be the right person that'll go, yes, I walk by this sign all the time, every day, blah, you know. So anyway, well, let's see if there's anything else here that I'm supposed to tell you. Oh, the do not call list. I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in relationship with me. That must be a mantra that we're supposed to do. Okay, prepare your conversation list. We're not going to, and that conversation list, that like I said, back to those buyer and seller checklists, I think that gives you some really good questions and discussion points to have with people when you're meeting them, either at an open house or just some things that if your ears, you know, to the ground and you hear that somebody might be thinking about selling or whatever. Celebrate our successes, that's the same thing. Command, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the next one's win the buyer. Okay, so anybody have any parting questions that you have for me? Anything's fair game. You have my phone number and you have my email address. If you want to bounce anything off me or anything like that at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. I love this business, and you can be as busy as you want, or you can be, you know, take it as a moderately slow business and not so that you don't stress yourself out. It all depends on your, you know, financial goals and being in business. But I personally love it. And, you know, I'm an older agent, but I love keeping my mind busy and I like interacting with people. And I've just found it to be a great second career for me. So it's been just great fun. And you know, I always say I have the best stories to tell at cocktail parties or holiday parties because I can really tell them some stories without revealing names about some crazy things that happen. Because there's plenty of them.
So you put your
So
email
anyway.
in the chat?
In the chat. Well, let's see. Chat. I have a brand new computer, and I'm having a heck of a time with the keyboard because it's offset. So there you go. All right, friends. Well, look, it's been great fun chatting with you, and I just wish you the most success and good luck. Don't just believe in yourself because you can do it. You've done other hard things, and you can do this too.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Bye now.
Bye.